me tell you a bit about our work. Our goal is to help young people connect with nature. And to do this, we create interesting courses, booklets, and games. And we also train nature educators. Today's session is a part of our ongoing effort to support young birders, not just in learning about birds, but also exploring how that interest can probably grow into something bigger, probably even a career. So, in this session, we will focus on career related questions, specifically from 14 to 18-year-olds. And to answer these questions, we are joined by three nature professionals, each with a very different career path and experience level. And hence, we can look forward to a wide range of perspectives. Let me begin by introducing our panelists. Our first panelist for today is Anirudh Arun. He is a wildlife photographer, videographer, and bird watcher from Bangalore, and his passion for the natural world led him to pursue wildlife photography and filmmaking as a means to shed light on pressing environmental issues. Currently, Anirudh is studying environmental studies at the University of Washington, Seattle, and he aspires to become a successful wildlife conservation filmmaker. Okay, welcome, Anirudh.
Hi, great to be here.
Thanks. Okay, our second panelist is Ashwin Viswanathan. He is a mechanical engineer turned ecologist, and he currently works as a research scientist at the Nature Conservation Foundation. His earlier research explored rainforest dynamics and plant diversity. And Ashwin is deeply interested in how public participation and collaboration can enrich science. So his current work centers on leveraging the power of citizen science to better understand the natural world. Welcome, Ashwin.
Thank you.
Okay, and our third panelist for today is Anita Mani. She began her professional career in journalism and then transitioned into the corporate world. Now she runs Indian Pitta Books, which is India's first dedicated book imprint for nature lovers, conservationists, and policymakers. Interestingly, it was Anita's son who introduced her to the world of birding. So she brings a unique dual perspective of both a passionate nature enthusiast and a parent who has supported that curiosity in her child. Welcome, Anita. Okay, we have everyone here. Anirudh, Ashwin, Anita, thank you so much for joining us today. So we will begin our session with questions that we have received from the participants in the registration form. And we will also leave some time at the end for questions from the audience. And during the discussion, if any of you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat and we will take that towards the end. Okay, so we are ready to get started. So first, let us get to know our panelists a little better. So my first question is for all of you, and that is that what early experiences made you interested in nature? And was there any particular experience that made you decide that your passion for nature could be something more than just a hobby? Okay, let's start with Anirudh.
Yeah. Yeah. So uh I've been visiting national parks and wildlife sanctuaries for as long as I can remember, and I've always had this kind of passion for the wild. But it was this one particular birding experience with Ashwin here and his mom, who happened to be my teacher in middle school. The lake near my house called the Lake, which got me crazy about bird watching. It made me realize that I didn't have to travel, hundreds of kilometers to wildlife sanctuaries and national parks to kind of see animals and wildlife. It was just a couple hundred meters from home. So that definitely was one of the experiences.
Awesome. Great to know that. Okay, Ashwin, what about you? How was your early experiences?
But I'll first say that it's wonderful to hear that, Anirudh. So I'm really glad. So I've been interested in nature from when I was really, really small. I'm made to understand. I think from when I was 2 or 3 years old, I've been catching cockroaches and various insects. So my initial fascination started with insects, and the reason I was allowed to explore that fascination and really get into it was again thanks to my mother. who's encouraged that throughout. And she wasn't particularly um, fascinated by cockroaches, but she didn't mind me handling them and experiencing everything around me. So I used to collect slugs and snails and various things. And my passion for birding began, I think, as a very natural progression when maybe vision becomes a bit better when I was about 5 or 6. And again, I was encouraged by my mom, who got me binoculars and a field guide back then. And so we were birding partners for a really long time. I think until I was about 18 or 20, I didn't actually know other bird watchers. It was just us. So,
Wow.
yeah.
That's such a nice thing to do with your mother. That's great. Lucky you, Ashwin. Okay, Anita, what about you?
So my story is like the reverse of Ashwin's because it was my son's interest in birds that sparked my interest in birds. He got interested when he was about 4, 5 years old, and because he was too young to wander around, parks and gardens on his own, I became the became his driver, the person who carries snacks. And but then I got fascinated myself. So we've spent many wonderful years in my son's growing up years wandering through the parks and gardens of Delhi, discovering all the species that you can see in our cities. And there was so much wonder and joy when we were able to match them with a image or an illustration in the field guides. So those were some very special times. I mean, I remember when I saw my first red-whiskered bulbul, my first magpie robin. So, because I was so much older, I have very specific memories and recollections of those, which I cherish.
Awesome. And when did you decide to move to a career related to nature?
Well, it was kind of organic because I've been writing, publishing for much longer than this. And so the idea was to just bring together two interests, one being birds, wildlife, and nature, and other being writing, editing, and publishing. So then it struck me that most of our books that we get, other than field guides, tend not to be written in India. They're not about Indian context, they're not about Indian species, but beautiful books all the same. And the idea was, why not try and bring out books on similar themes about Indian context, about Indian taxa, about Indian landscapes. So it was not very it was very strategically thought through. It just sort of came together.
Okay, nice. Ashwin, I think we missed this question for you. How did you decide to take up nature and related fields?
So I also like maths and I like science. And through high school, that was what I thought could be done by somebody who liked maths and science. So I thought I probably need to do engineering. And there was absolutely no awareness about a career in nature. So we didn't think that anything existed beyond, say, filmmaking or photography. Those were out of our reach at that point. So I did my engineering, and during that time was when internet and computers were becoming more and more accessible. So I could look around, I had the freedom to search, and then I realized that at least outside India, there was a space for academics, nature-related academics. And then I found out about this one possibility in India, which was the master's course that I joined. I also wrote to various people outside India, tried to ask them whether they had anything which I could join, and but eventually that's how I made the transition. Just at the end of my engineering, I started transitioning.
Nice, nice. Yeah, there's a lot more information now, and there are sessions like these. So we have some lucky participants today who are listening to this. We have many young birders here who are thinking about careers like all of you. And so, what would your advice be to them? Like, what are the skills that are required in these fields, and how can they start building these skills? Ashwin, what do you think?
Okay. So we often think of nature as something very visual, where you have to learn to appreciate nature, maybe build skills in photography and just in being aware. But there are many other more conventional skills that are really useful for a nature-related career. And I would I would say that maths, programming, computer programming are both extremely useful. as you go ahead, especially in academics, because it's an integral part of academics. And I think maths is useful everywhere. So a bit of a basic understanding, at least of arithmetic, is really useful, I feel. But programming is extremely important in life.
That's interesting to know, and probably not so intuitive, right? That programming and maths is what you suggested, like a true engineer.
Yeah.
Okay, and Anirudh, let's come to you. Are there
Yeah.
any opportunities like internships, volunteering, citizen science projects, which teenagers can explore to build these skills?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot more opportunities than you would actually think there are. One thing that I would definitely encourage teenagers to do is to start using citizen science projects like eBird and iNaturalist. Not because one thing is that it's a huge contribution to research. It helps a lot in understanding behavior, stuff like that. But another thing it teaches you a lot. I've gone into the field with Merlin Bird ID, eBird, and iNat, and learned so much about identification of plants, insects, birds. That's one thing that I would heavily tell or heavily recommend for everybody. Just start using these apps and platforms. They're a great resource. As far as volunteering is concerned, there are a lot of organizations just in and around India, Bangalore, also to be very specific, like Wildlife Trust of India, Wildlife SOS, Wolimati Nature Foundation, all of that. I know a lot of people who volunteered there, and it's an incredible experience. Another really cool opportunity is this program by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. It's called the Young Birders Program, which I was lucky enough to be a part of in 2022. Essentially, it's a group of birders that you can apply for it through their website, and you get called to the Lab of Ornithology in Ithaca. You get to interact with super awesome people your age from around the world who are as passionate into birding as you are. And you also get this really cool insight into how eBird works, how Merlin Bird ID is made. You get to interact with the director of eBird and stuff like that. Um, Finally, when it comes to internships, having gone through this process very recently, I know it's hard for high school students to get internships as easily because everyone's always saying, oh, you're not in college yet, or you have to be 18 and stuff like that. But then one thing that I have or realized and understood that I used a lot was to go for smaller organizations, smaller companies, and convey your passion to them. Send them a cold email, tell them what you're looking for, tell them why you want to do this. And it's a very supportive field, it's a very supportive industry. People will always get back to you. And even if they say, we can't do it right now, it's always a good contact to have in the future. So just send emails out and go for smaller companies, and you'll definitely have some really cool opportunities that show up.
So those are some great tips. And Anirudh, can you tell us about your internships? Like what projects did you do, and how what did you learn from those projects?
Yeah, so I was lucky enough to do internships with a wide range of companies, right? I interned with Early Bird, where I worked in marketing. I helped Early Bird with conducting bird walks. I also did internships in the field of filmmaking and photography with wildlife tourism companies, like the Outback Experience, and also this education company based out of Kunur called You Can Eat You, run by Ramnath Chandrasekhar. And what I learned is that the more you work with people, the more you intern, the more interesting people's jobs start seeming, right? I started off as a guy who wanted to work in research, work in ornithology, and today I'm pursuing a career in filmmaking because the more you interact with people, the more connections you make, just you learn so much more about the field. So yeah, that's definitely something to look out for.
Amazing. Yeah, that's true. You have to go out there to know what all is there and what kind of opportunities are there, right? So, Anita, let's come to you. You are a writer. You have interacted and met so many biologists, ornithologists, written about them. And somehow, like communication, I feel, is a very important skill to have in this field because a lot of people in this field are trying to bring about change, right? They're trying to bring about change in some way or the other. So what do you think? Like, how important is writing and communication in nature-related fields?
Yeah. So So I think it's become very central. I mean, on one hand, you have what Ashwin said in terms of math and comp skills, but these are the other set of skills that you also need to have to be successful. Because I think as scientists and academics are now realizing, it's not just important to do the work, it's important to communicate the work. And we're talking with multiple audiences. You have to make this information accessible and interesting to, say, government bodies, to policymakers, to general public, to the media, to specialist interest groups like bird watchers, and online social platforms, which where the grammar is entirely different. So you really need communication, and one person doesn't have to be good at all these things. But the point I'm making is that communication is a big part of what you do. I think in the nature related field, simply because there's such an urgency right now, especially in view of all the climate crisis, the rather dismal news that keeps pouring in terms of what's going wrong with the environment, that it's more than important to be able to communicate this forward, right? So I think, and like I said, I mean, it's something that will come in useful to you as a student. It will come in useful to you as a working professional, because, and it can be a real differentiator, because a lot of people, and trust me, I see a lot of manuscripts and a lot of copy. Most people don't write well. So if you are able to communicate clearly and you're able to articulate clearly, you're going to stand out straight away. So it can be a real game changer. And if I may add to what Anirudh spoke about earlier in terms of what you can do in school, because I know a lot of internships are offered only to college students, you'll be surprised at how receptive your own schools can be. Go in and tell them you want to start a bird club, a nature club in school, do bird walks in schools. And look, if you have a nice campus, catalog what wildlife is around you in your campus. I mean, these are great places to start, and these are accessible to you. No school is, your own schools are never going to say no to you, So, and most of them are undocumented, like eBird, I think they run the campus bird count. So enroll your organization, participate. You can do a lot of stuff at the school level as well.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks, Anita. Yeah, we also have the season watch program, which monitors trees, and that's run very successfully in many schools across Kerala. So that's another project that you could explore with your school. Okay, so from skills, let's now move on to higher studies. So Ashwin, could you tell us a bit about your choice of courses and colleges and how that shaped your career?
Yeah, so as I said, I did engineering not because that was the best thing for me to do at that point, because I happened to do it. But what really helped me during that time is I was able to explore the outdoors. I was able to travel to a few places, and like Anirudh said, internships give you so much, and so does just walking around, experiencing nature, experiencing different places. So I got the chance to visit parts of the Himalaya, to visit parts of the desert, and all of these experiences really change your mindset. You learn so much. You learn about agriculture. You learn about how people live. You learn about animals and plants. So it's really useful to make the best of the time you have during whatever course you're doing. But beyond that, because I was interested in becoming an academic, I did a master's after my engineering. But what also helped in between is that between my undergraduation and my master's, I took the time out to intern with certain programs. And I went to different parts of the country and learned a lot. And after that, it's a more conventional academic track that I've followed.
Can you tell us a bit about the conventional academic track?
Okay. Yeah. So after my undergraduation, my BTech, I did a master's in wildlife biology and conservation at NCBS in Bangalore. And after which I went to Europe for a PhD in ecology. I was in Zurich, and there I spent 4 years studying plants largely. But the reason I did it there is because they also allowed me to do my fieldwork in India, which was really valuable for me because I understand the landscapes and the people. So I did that in the Western Ghats. And throughout that period of my life, my research life, I was really interested in how forests function. Why is it that there's so many species of plants in forests? And that's a question that maybe some of you would have had. Why are there so many species of different kinds? Why is it not that they're just one or two or three? Because they all are competing with each other, right? But the thing is, there are many processes in these rainforests that allow so much diversity to be there. So I was very interested in that question, and that's something I studied then. But towards the end of my PhD, I started understanding more about citizen science. That was when eBird as a tool came into India, and that was when there was the growth of public participation in bird-related science in India. And I was one of these people where, although my research was focused on plants, I started watching birds, documenting them, came in contact with a community that was interested in this. And since then, I've changed my research focus also to this, to see how we can collectively, professionals and non-professionals, contribute to science and conservation.
Very interesting journey, Ashwin. That's why you know about moths and trees and birds,
Yeah.
everything. Great. Okay, so my next question is to Anirudh and Anita, who have recently done the big exercise of choosing colleges. So, what advice do you have for choosing colleges for someone interested in a career in conservation or nature? Anirudh, would you like to go first?
Yeah. I think there's only a couple of tips that I would give in mind give you instead of giving you exact college names and stuff like that. One thing that I would definitely recommend, at least my thought process was to not at the undergraduate level, not study something too specific and too niche. Go for something that gives you a little bit wider scope and the ability to change paths if you're allowed to, right? Like for me, like I told you, I started off on one side and I've ended up on the other side. Similarly, in college, when you're just going through college, you're doing these courses, and all of a sudden you suddenly realize, okay, maybe I don't want to study birds and maybe I want to study marine bio. Pick a course that gives you that the ability to say, okay, I can study marine bio if I want to. Another thing that I would definitely recommend is pick courses or universities that offer field courses. I think something that we all have in common is just the love for being outside, right? Studying environmental studies or wildlife biology, all of that in a classroom is okay. But then if you're able to actually go out into the field and experience the thing you're studying about, it's definitely a really, really cool experience. So pick universities that are located in nice geographical areas or that are close to places that have a lot of wildlife, and pick a wider course that you can kind of just choose at any point in time.
Yeah, that's excellent advice, Anirudh. Thanks. Anita, what do you think? What additional advice do you have?
I think one at the school level, I think there are two stages, right? One, when you choose your college for your undergraduate program, and then when you choose your master's, if you choose to study, because what you will find is that wildlife sciences is something that's essentially offered in India at the master's level, not at the undergraduate level. So if you're planning to study in India, then you're looking to get an education that can land you to one of these programs, either your master's programs, either in India or overseas. So what we found, because I have a son who's now doing his master's, but when he applied for his undergrad, he was very clear he wanted to go into wildlife sciences. So he said, I'm going to choose science in his class 11 and 12, because he thought it was important to keep the science stream and do math along with it. So you have to keep a watchful eye on what undergraduate programs you are looking for and what their prerequisites are. For instance, we found out that we live in Delhi, and we found out that Delhi University, you cannot apply for a zoology program if you haven't taken physics in your 11th and 12th. It's completely not connected to, there is no like pressing connection between the two, but it's a 30-year-old rule that I don't think they're ever planning to change. So he couldn't, my son, for example, couldn't apply in any of the Delhi University colleges. So if you have a specific geography where you plan to do your undergraduate studies, we keep informed in terms of what the prerequisites are. But the good news is that there are lots of excellent universities in India, a lot of new universities which have a far more broad-based program. My son eventually ended up going to Ashoka, which offers a fabulous range of courses, and you can pretty much pick and choose, from a wide variety of majors, cross majors, two majors, and do a lot of extra courses and keep it very, very broad-based. So those are the kind of options that you should keep in mind. And then, if you're doing wildlife sciences, then you can apply for it in the postgraduate level. I'll only end with saying that this is the conventional path, but as Ashwin exemplifies, and there are a lot of examples. I did a book with a bunch of women who are wildlife biologists today, and most of them had such diverse paths. I mean, someone did a BSc in math, someone did something in statistics, somebody did something in completely unrelated fields, but they all ended up being brilliant wildlife biologists. So I think the key is the passion, the key is the interest that makes you ask the questions that matter.
Thanks, Anita. Yeah, that was great. Yeah, so basically take subjects which keep your options open. Like Anirudh said, take whatever subjects, like think about and research about what subjects you want to, that are needed for the courses that you will do in college, right? Okay, so now let's discuss careers. Ashwin, this one's for you. What are some of the different jobs available in these fields? And could you tell us about any emerging areas that young people should know about?
So this world has grown immensely in the last 10 years, I would say. The number of careers, the number of kinds of careers have increased so much in the nature-related space that you'd see that what previously used to be people in a few conservation organizations and researchers and maybe writers and photographers, now that has blossomed into a whole range of things, from even being a part of companies and climate-related research. That's a big emerging field, anything to do with the climate, because I think there's growing understanding in India and everywhere else that this is something we need to very, very quickly learn how to counter in some sense. But there's also a very big world of tourism in India now. And there are some really nice careers in nature tourism, not just birds, but general wildlife tourism, where it is also very strongly linked with education. So you're not just showing people nature, but you're also educating the public so that we have a more aware public. So there are a number of things in wildlife lodges, in organizations. There are freelance wildlife tour operators, and these can be very nice and enriching careers as well. In addition to that, there's the more conventional academic career where you're doing research, you're participating in conservation in some way, and there are the NGOs that focus much more on conservation itself, on conservation practice, and implementing the science that people produce. So it's a good time to be in this space in India, I would say.
Okay, that's great. And so when you say research, and Ashwin, so you do research and then that impacts some kind of change in that geography. Is that how it works?
Yeah, not always. In some cases, the research very slowly and incrementally builds up into something that can help with change. But in many cases, it's basically unlocking small pieces of a larger puzzle. What happens under different circumstances? What happens if you have a forest that is fragmented into different parts? So let's say you have a small forest patch surrounded by tea, and somewhere else you have a larger forest patch. Is there a difference in how wildlife or nature can sustain in both? Are there certain fundamental processes that get impacted when you have a forest that is too small? These are some of many small questions that together can add up to a larger understanding of where we are headed and how we want to maintain our natural landscapes.
Got it. Yeah, very interesting. Okay, and apart from these core conservation jobs, can someone contribute with other skills like photography, journalism, filmmaking, education? There are so many other skills that people might have or might be interested in. So, Anita, could you tell us about how some people can contribute with other skills?
So I think, in terms of the nature communication itself, right? So there are people who are documenting it for organizations. I mean, I think a lot of conservation NGOs also have strong communications teams that communicate the work of their scientists and to raise public awareness. So even within that space, you have an opportunity to focus on communication. I think then too, in the media as well, I think there will be an increasing need for specialists, especially in climate science, because that is essentially the big science question I think we're all grappling with on a daily basis, right? So there will be increasing reportage on it, and there will be a need for expert voices. So that again I see as an area of where you will need people, train people. Then, of course, in terms of publishing, in terms of people who write in newspapers and magazines and for books, that's another area and aspect of the nature careers. I see a lot of young people doing a lot of long form writing, detailed work, feature writing. Most of them are freelancing. They will write for many publications. That's again an opportunity that is, I think, more available now than ever before. I think this what we're seeing, and I'm seeing this in terms of the response to the books that we published. There's a lot of interest in nature-based communication. People are looking for ways to connect back, especially people who had essentially worked in careers for 20, 30 years and who just now want a break from all that, as well as young people who are growing up hearing about the climate crisis, what we're doing to nature, and will want to learn more. So a lot of drivers and the interest in nature communication is at a level I've never seen before. Like even older people, like my mother suddenly is interested in the topic. I mean, and she read fiction all her life. So it's changing. So, and I think therefore becoming a communicator, whether in media or in books and publishing within the NGO space, I think that's a real opportunity there.
Yeah, that's a lot of variety of options. That's great. And Anirudh, can you tell us a bit about photography, filmmaking? What are the opportunities there?
Yeah, so I think conventionally, or when I was getting into this field, there's a misconception that it's very research intensive and stuff like that. But I personally I don't think that's true at all. I think storytelling through photography and filmmaking is a huge part of this industry. Simply because how do you communicate to people who aren't already in this loop or in this industry already? Right? Like, for example, Ashwin was talking about research and how these small fragments kind of add to this, or these small parts of a bigger puzzle, right? So then, if there is research being done, how do I tell the people of Bangalore that this research has been done, and how do you create that impact? I think that's where storytelling makes a really, really big difference. Um, Today's world, you don't really need a fancy $10,000 camera and a $10,000 lens to tell these stories. Your phone camera is more than enough. Especially with short form content like Instagram Reels and TikTok blowing up, you can tell stories pretty easily and make a pretty big impact. In terms of opportunities, it's definitely not the easiest, especially I think in India right now, to get into this whole world of filmmaking very easily, simply because there's not a lot happening in it. But I think over the next few years, with the way awareness is growing in India and people have more access to filmmaking equipment, I really think it is going to blow up.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Anirudh. We all like watching wildlife videos. I think even if people are not really interested in wildlife, going out and seeing wildlife, they still enjoy watching wildlife videos. They're always great. Okay, so we have almost come to an end of this discussion. We will have one more question for panelists before we take audience questions. So please do start putting in your questions into the chat while we take the last question, while I ask the last question to the audience. So my last question to all of you is if you could give one piece of advice to your 16-year-old self, what would that be? Okay, so let's start with Anita. What do you think? What will be your advice?
I mean, I would have just wished that I had been far more interested in wildlife much earlier, simply because I think when I was younger, habitats were a lot more undisturbed. And the irony of it all is that I was in the corporate world for a long period of time, and I worked for a company that had operations across the most amazing landscapes across all of Africa, across all of Southeast Asia. I used to travel constantly for work, and I wasn't a birder then. So I always think I think my list of possible but lost life force is very high. And there's a lot of, because I mean we were working in Madagascar, in Mauritius, in all the amazing destinations that I've been interested in birds, and I had an enviable life list. So I just wish I had been more into it when I was younger. So I would say, like, so you all are starting out at the right time. So
Yeah, so true. I also feel like that. I wish I was a birder sooner. Okay, Ashwin, what would your advice be? You're in mute, Ashwin.
Oh, yeah, sorry. So I was going to say this is a very difficult question. But one thing that I've always wished I had done a little more is to be diligent in terms of my note keeping. That's something I never learned to do. To write things down, to document my observations somewhere. Since these citizen science tools have come up, that's something we've increasingly started doing. But that's something that many people have done from their childhood, and I'd encourage everybody to do that. To draw nature around you, to take photos, to take down some small observations of what you're seeing around you, and all of that can be really valuable when you go back and look at it. And there's so much to learn about change. There's so much to learn about how you view the world as well, and how that has changed. So that's something I wish I had done.
Nature journaling.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, Anirudh, and what do you think? You're not so far from 16, but still.
Yeah, I think one thing that I would want to do, which I probably didn't do as much 2 years, 3 years ago, was really just go out there and put your work out there and talk to people and don't be scared of not knowing something. I think something that I did a lot was I would not talk as much or not interact as much because I was always worried that I didn't know enough about the birds I was going to watch or know enough about herping. But then the more you're here, you kind of realize that everybody doesn't know something, right? There's always something that you're going to learn when you're out on the field. So just go out there, put your photos out there, put your videos out there, just meet people and just have fun in the field, especially when you're just in this period of trying to figure out what you want to do. Just do whatever you can. I think that's it.
Yeah, that's excellent advice. I think a lot of teenagers are hesitant to talk to people. And when you meet more people who have the same interests as you and you build your network, there's just so much more to learn. So that's great advice, and talk to more people and put yourself out there. Great. Okay, so we'll now move to audience questions. And just looking at questions which my colleague Tanmay has put in. Okay, we have three questions so far, and okay, there are more questions coming in. There are two questions about nature education. So one is, can you elaborate on the kind of courses available for nature educators? And there is Kanika, this is from Vanya, and Kanika has asked that she has completed a basic certificate course in ornithology a few years ago, and what more can she study and how can she transition into nature education for children? Okay, Ashwin, would you like to take that?
I'm not sure that I know about paths for nature educators. Maybe Shruti, you should take this.
Okay, yeah, let me tell you what I know.
Yeah.
So Kanika, Manya, there are lots of online content that is available for nature educators. I would highly recommend that you uh, check out the content available on Birding Buddies. Birding Buddies is our program for nature educators, and there is a lot of content available on YouTube. We have Birding Buddies session every month or two. There was one yesterday. That all is about people who are looking to teach children about nature. And we also have Birding Buddies courses. There is a handbook for nature educators also that is available on the Early Bird website. And so this is all that is there in Early Bird. There is also content available on WWF. There is content available on BNHS. So there is lot of content out there. So please do check that out. And you can you can just start with a group of children in your community, take them out for nature walks, and you will also learn a lot as you do it yourself, right? But if you need any advice, the Early Bird team, specifically the Birding Buddies program, is where you can connect with for more information on nature education. Okay, and the next question is from Abdul, and he says, how can I earn and pursue my passion at the same time? Okay, so this is slightly related, I think it's kind of related to pay. So let's take that. Ashwin, could you tell us about how is it possible to earn and pursue your passion at the same time?
Yeah, so it is possible to do this, and today there are many jobs in nature that allow you to earn reasonably well, so that you can live a good life. Now, as you go through your next few years, you may see that if you choose a nature-related path, there may be friends and people who choose other streams who are earning much more, and that is going to be inevitable. I think if you're in IT, if you're a corporate, you are going to earn more. But the good thing is that you can earn reasonable amounts or good amounts to be able to live a luxurious life. I would say even as you progress as somebody in a nature career. This is true in various aspects, whether it's research, where you'll be earning on par with various other research fields. If somebody is in physics or chemistry or mathematics, ecology, so you're effectively earning on par with all of these. And if you're, of course, in other more freelancing fields, it depends on where you on how you do it. So that's with photography, tourism, many others. But again, if you work with companies, you are going to earn on par with other people in your environment.
Okay, got it. That's helpful. So there is enough pay to live a comfortable life. Okay. Then the next question is from Anika, and she's saying that she wishes to work in wildlife sanctuaries and national parks in India and abroad. And what skills would help me to work there, and what subjects should I pursue to work in these places? Okay. Okay, Ashwin, do you know about working in wildlife sanctuaries and national parks, apart from IFS, I'm assuming?
Yeah, so one of the good ways to work in these places is in tourism. Can work with a wildlife lodge. You can even be a freelance guide and go in. But a number of wildlife lodges now take tourism very seriously, and they take education also very seriously, education. So they have training programs for people who are who work with them, naturalists. They're called in the lodges, and you can earn reasonably well. You can live in nature, and you can interact with a number of people and help them get more and more interested in nature. Maybe Aniruddha, Anita, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, I think like Ashwin said, naturalists and lodges is a very big way of working in wildlife sanctuaries. I know a lot of friends of mine who I met through photography and filmmaking and you see all these incredible photos that they put up and crazy experiences, all because they just stay in the lodges. They're interacting with a lot of interesting people on a daily basis and have some incredible experiences. And if you begin hearing their stories, it's unimaginable.
And also, I think it's also good to track volunteering opportunities. I think those of you who are not on the Yeti mailing list should probably put yourself on the Yeti mailing list, because there are always calls for volunteers, and there are calls for short-term projects. And I've seen when they're doing census counts in national parks, I've seen calls for volunteers. You're just expected to come armed with an interest and an ability to to sort of rough it out for a week or so, and they put you up and you get a chance to work in the sanctuary, work with naturalists. So you do get, and these are typically tend to be unpaid, where they just pay your costs. But at this point, you're essentially looking to tot up the experiences and see how it is. So that's a great way to actually to experience it and be and how it is to be in national parks, and because it's all not glamorous. I mean, I don't want to, sound very pessimistic, because I'm not trying to be, but while the encounters with wildlife and meeting great people are the highs of the job, the lows or the realities also that you're living in fairly simple ACO. Food can be dal chawal for 1 month straight. So, but I'm assuming that since all of you are interested in a career in nature, you know what you're signing up for. But it gives you a chance to experience all this volunteering. It gives you a chance to experience all this before you make up your mind that this is what you want to do for the rest of your life.
And if I
Nice.
can add, Shruti had mentioned IFS as well, and that's something none of us have acknowledged here. There is also the possibility of Indian Forest Service, which can be a difficult job because, of course, as we know, these can be complicated. But it does give you the opportunity to do some really good work and be in very nice places. But it can be very challenging.
Yeah, that's true. And there's an age limit also. So please do look at the age limit. And it's not like something that you can pursue later in life. Okay, I have a question for you, Anita. Which nature organizations or publications offer opportunities for writers? And how would you suggest someone currently working in the corporate sector to gradually transition into this field?
There are of course printed magazines like Sanctuary, where they do have external writers who write for them. You have to make a very strong pitch, because especially if you're not already in the field of conservation and you're writing for the first time, you have to make a strong pitch with a strong storyboard or an idea that you want to pursue and write about. There are great online publications like Ground Glass Sustain. I think wonderful resource for information on any kind of most Indian species. There's lots of articles that they have. They have another great website where you could pitch your ideas to. Then, if you look at it, a lot of the online long form publications like the Print, the Wire, do carry a lot of nature-based communication and manga based. So you need to make a strong pitch and send in your pitch articles to them. Then I do know that the other thing that people do, and this is especially useful when you're starting out and you haven't got a lot of big body of published work, is to set up a Substack or a Medium account and just start writing and put that writing out on social media, so that people, editors like me, other publishers who are constantly scanning to see if they can find that amazing new voice that they want to publish, and then you find them that way. I mean, some of the writers whom I have eventually published, I came across through their social media posts. So, I got to know them on social media because they put out their articles there, they connected it to, they linked it to their published work, and that's how I kind of found them. So, as Anirudh said, put yourself out there, especially if you want to write. Don't wait to be published by a larger publication, start writing.
Yeah, that's great advice. Yeah, put yourself out there, use social media. That's a very powerful tool that all of us now have. Okay, so next question. Anirudh, could you take this? Is there any market for table books today, considering the fact that we live in a digital era? And understanding the fact that the book is about wildlife and mostly birds, what should be done from our part to make a good book, and what are the various methods to popularize it? I think Anita can also add in, but let's start with Anirudh.
Yeah, so I think in terms of market for coffee table books, I'm talking from a photographer's perspective. There's always a market for putting your photos into a book and putting it out there. But as far as um, making it making it special, I think we're at a point where there are thousands, hundreds and thousands of photos of leopards from the Western Ghats and tigers from Ranthambore, right? So putting it together as a book, and I'm not an expert on books, but as far as putting your own photos, yes, as a personal memorabilia, I think it definitely makes sense. But I'm no expert on books. I think Anita could take this better, but making a book and then putting it out there, I'm not sure how that works.
Yeah, so I mean, coffee table books are expensive for any publisher to publish because they're full color, they're large format. So there are a couple of specialist publishers who do mainly coffee table books, like Rowley, for example, produces beautiful looking books. Um, but these are, not, but you'll find there are far fewer of them in a year than compared to other books simply because they're far more expensive to publish. But yeah, as Anirudh suggested, it's a great way for you to put together a personal keepsake of your memories of your wildlife, of your memories and your encounters with nature and wildlife. Yeah, I think that's possible. And in terms of marketing it, it's the same question because they're so expensive to produce. They're also very expensively priced. They tend to be at least over 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, 2,500, which makes them out the reach of most people. And for me, that's problematic because my aim is to bring out, for me, at least Indian Pitta, at least our aim is to bring out books that a lot of people can read to bring the beauty of nature to people who have not been, say, reading about it before.
Yeah.
And starting with a very expensive book is, I think, a tough ask.
I think another thing to add, which is essentially a sad reality when it comes to coffee table books, is that resorts or hotels where you would essentially see these books in wildlife lodges and stuff like that tend to go for bigger names and more famous coffee table books that have been published. Like for example, one that a lot of people might see is a photographic field guide to the wildlife of South India, which was recently published, and it's just a lot more of these bigger names with people with more reputation whose books tend to get kept in these lodges. So that's just another point to add.
Yeah, that's right. To make your name before people want to buy your coffee table books, right? Okay, there's another question for you, Anirudh from Manya. She wants to understand how she can explore filmmaking as a way to contribute to nature and conservation work. Can you tell us a bit about the films you have made and how you hope to bring impact through those?
Yeah, so I think when it comes to filmmaking and photography, there are kind of two ways of going about it. The first one, like I think we've mentioned, is to use social media as your tool. Put your photos out there, put your videos out there. I think a lot of people that I've connected with in this world is primarily because I've been very active on Instagram, just putting my stuff out there and constantly updating my portfolio on the internet. That's definitely one way to go about it. The other way to go about it, which I think is a little bit more professional, is to find smaller stories around yourself or around things that you're very passionate about and just make a film on that. So, for example, in the lake that I started birding in, Taranekandi, over the years, I kind of saw that the lake was degrading. There was a lot of pollution coming in. And what I kind of realized is that nobody else is going to be telling this story, right? I have a personal connection to this lake. I've grown up in this area. And then how do you let people know that, okay, this lake is getting degraded? So find smaller stories around you that bigger production houses like BBC or Nat Geo won't be telling. And the more you tell these stories, the more you earn a reputation for yourself because people begin noticing your stories are a little bit different from the conventional cheetah chasing a gazelle kind of shot in National Geographic. So just go out, find smaller stories, and be active on social media. I think social media is a very, very powerful tool today.
Yeah, that's true. I think when we take ownership of our own, like spaces around us, there's a lot of impact that citizens can bring, right? Like we can't probably impact tigers so much, but you can impact a lake that is in your neighborhood. Okay, so I think the last question we have for today is from Anika and Ashwin. You could take this. Can you name some companies and organizations that are related to nature conservation and which also encourage people to help in retaining the Earth's biodiversity? So I think a long list of companies that we could probably all put together here.
Yeah, it's a long list of organizations, so I may miss something. But among the ones that I end up interacting with more, there's Nature Conservation Foundation that I'm a part of. WWF India, I think they also have a large team doing various kinds of work. There's Wildlife Conservation Society. So these are some of the conservation NGOs. There's Center for Wildlife Studies. There's which are the others? Somebody remind me. Wildlife Trust of India. So there are a number of them actually. If you just look around now, you'll find many such NGOs that are doing conservation work. There's also the Habitats Trust that has been making waves recently. Any others that the rest of you want to add?
There's A3 in Bangalore as well.
Yes.
I think there's
BNHS, of course.
Yeah.
BNHS in Bombay, and I think there's yeah, you already have them. WCT as well out of Western India. Yeah, and the Corbett Foundation, I think, which does work in Northern India. And there are a lot of smaller organizations in different states and even in different cities, which are worthwhile. Adduction Foundation, of course, which does work in marine. I mean, there are so many, but I mean, a lot of smaller NGOs who work at a city level and the state level, which do a lot of impactful work. In terms of, like in Delhi, for example, there is a couple of rewilding companies that they're called rewilders, where they are rewilding patches of the Aravallis. So that's really, again, interesting. They're not pan-India, but they work in a very specific geography. You'll find examples like that as well.
Yeah, that's right. Like go and find the birding or the nature groups in your city. There will be one. There will definitely be one. And they will be doing some local conservation work that you can be a part of.
Yeah, and I'd also like to add that nowadays the lines between conservation and civic issues and climate, they're all a little blurred. It's all different parts of the same thing. And there are so many organizations working with civic issues for which conservation and management of natural resources is such an integral part. Many cities, many states, a number of organizations working on civic issues. So those are also good organizations to work with because they're all interested in having this perspective.
Awesome. Yeah, lots of opportunities. We have one more question that's still coming in. So from Krishna Swami, he's asking if there is a free online course that offers a certificate to enable young people to get started in this field. And I will take that. So we do have the Wonder of Birds course by Early Bird. Please do check it out. It's a great course. It will just take you 3 hours and it will give you a certificate as well. It can be taken by anyone above the age of 11. The WWF India also has several courses, so you can check that out as well.
And I think for advanced people, especially interested in birds, this is a course in ornithology, which is offered over a full year. Maybe Ashwin remembers the name of the organization that offers it, but it's a full year program with great lecturers.
Yeah, so there's an NPTEL course. So NPTEL is a government initiative that houses courses, and you can even do it for credits going forward, if I'm not wrong, in your
Yes, you can, but it's very hard to onboard those credits, by the way. But you can. But it was a great course. I think I've seen the curriculum, and it's really, especially if you're interested in birds and you want to get
it's called a basic course in ornithology, something of the sort, no?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. There's also a website called ornithology.in that has some of the foundation lectures that went into the more advanced NPTEL course. So that's another thing that all of you can check out. And there the lectures are visible to all. It's called ornithology.in, and you may enjoy some of the lectures there.
Yeah. And I think the Cornell Lab also has free online courses. So you can also do, the examples tend to be a lot of North American birds and New World species. But the overall strategy, the overall ways of looking at birds, what to look for when identifying certain kinds of, say, shorebirds or warblers, I think it's you can always apply them.
I think we lost Anita for a minute there.
I think
Want to continue, Anirudh?
yeah, maybe not along the same lines as ornithology and birding, but KCRE Kalinga also has some really cool courses when it comes to when it comes to herbs and snakes. So they do these really cool naturalist programs for snakes of the Western Ghats. That's also just another course.
Great. Yeah. Anita, we lost you for a minute when I think just now.
Yeah, I know. It kind of froze the screen. Sorry. Did somebody asked and I missed responding?
No, no. Yeah, I think we didn't hear the whole part of the last sentence that you said. I think that's it.
Yeah, I was just saying that I was reiterating that they should check out the Cornell Lab of Ornithology website, because the courses are all offered online through their website.
Right. There's also a certified naturalist course that I have seen, or maybe there are several. Ashwin, do you know about that?
Yeah, there are a couple. There's one offered by the Naturalist School in Bangalore. I think they have a naturalist training course, and there's a Nature Guides Academy, I think they're called now, and they have a course that runs every year in Kanha. This is for naturalists, and there are a few such naturalist training courses that happen around the country. So if interested in working at a lodge at some point, or at least training to do that at some point, these courses can be very useful, because a really important part of that is also hospitality, to learn how to deal with people, to work with people, and make sure that everybody is happy, in addition to educating.
Okay, great. Thanks, everyone. I think it's past 12:30, so we will have to wrap up this interesting discussion. If any of you have any questions which we've not been able to answer, please do send it to us by email. You can the social media IDs of everyone is linked in the post that we had put out about this session, so you can find it there, or you can send an email to earlybird and we will take it up with the panelists. And a warm, big thank you to our panelists, Anirudh, Ashwin, and Anita, for sharing your personal journeys and giving a lot of practical advice on planning careers in nature-related fields. And thanks to our audience for your curiosity and great questions. And we hope this session has given you some new information and some direction for your own journey with nature. So look out for my email shortly after the session with a few interesting articles that I have put together related to careers in nature. And I will also include a quick feedback form. Please do fill it. Tell us what you liked about this session and tell us what other sessions you would like. Please do also tell us what kind of content do you want. And this is something that Anita had proposed, that we ask all of you that what kind of content do you want, which will help you with your journey towards selecting a career in nature related fields. Was there any information that you think we could have added to this session? Please do drop that in the feedback. And thank you once again for joining us today. And I look forward to seeing you all in the next session. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.